Good evening. My name is Victoria. I am the senior manager of the NYU Makerspace. It is in the Tandon School of Engineering in downtown Brooklyn. Tandon is new to NYU, if you did not know. So I'm going to give you a little overview of my quick 5 or 6 minutes. I'm going to tell you about myself, sort of my personal story of community, how I got where I am. Maybe a little bit of tips and tricks. I think all the wonderful ladies who talked ahead of me had some great advice, and I'm going to riff on that a little bit. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about how community plays into my work now, specifically in the research and sort of community building that we do in the NYU Makerspace. So I'm from Ohio. I am an introvert, and I am an engineer. My pronouns are she, her, hers, just to give you a background of me. Okay. After my undergrad in engineering and electrical engineering, I moved to Texas to do my master's. And I think one thing that we've heard from all of the ladies today, and at the last event that we did, or that Christina hosted, is that there's an intersection. I think we all have an intersection, and that's really what brought us to 3D printing. We have many interests and many varied interests and backgrounds. So for me, I was in electrical engineering, but I was really into microcontrollers. I was working on a project with another graduate student doing something in costume technology and wearable technology. And there was a makerspace that opened up at the school I was going to. So that was sort of my first introduction to 3D printing and the 3D printing community. It was brief. I was excited. I sat in the space. I fiddled with the printers. I made lots of things. And then I graduated and I moved to New York City. And that was, it was challenging. I was very excited to be here. I love New York. My mom's from Brooklyn. But there was no community, right? It's a new space. It's a new city. It's a very large city. So how does that community grow? And I was at a loss. Where do I go from here? And one thing that I associated with my time in makerspaces and in academia and my master's was the sort of impact that these spaces and the hands-on work that we do can have on ourselves. So specifically in academia, how can these hands-on learning experiences help us? How do they give us confidence? How do they increase our self-efficacy? Especially, I think, as women and maybe as underrepresented minorities in engineering or in the spaces that we're in. So that's what kind of drew me back to makerspaces. I was, again, working in academia. I worked at Cooper Union. I started a small makerspace. I got back into 3D printing. And I started to grow a community. I'm going to reference something I said in the beginning, which is that I am an introvert. So I think you really hit the nail on the head. You have to give yourself tips. I think there are times and ways to be patient with yourself when you're building community. It's taken me a while, but I feel that I do have a community here, and I'll talk more about that. But you have to hold yourself accountable to keep building community. So I'm an introvert. I could sit home, I could read all day, I could watch TV, sit on the couch, and I need that time for myself. You have to take care of yourself mentally and emotionally, but it's important to be going out and to be doing these types of things. So I know that if I don't do them, then I won't grow my community, and even though I'm an introvert, I need that community. It is essential to me and to my growth, both personally and professionally, right? So one thing I do want to say, and I know we've clapped a lot, but I want to say in the 5+ years that I've been in New York City, the growth around women in 3D printing, women in design, just 3D printing in general and makerspaces has been amazing. I want to say thank you to Christina and Alyssa one more time. Let's give them a round of applause. I felt that these spaces I think they did to some extent, but they didn't exist the way they do now when I first moved here. So I think that's really amazing. And I'm really excited to be a part of that and to be taking advantage of it, to be honest. So thank you. So now, I was in New York, I was working at Cooper Union, started a makerspace, and I found out that NYU was starting a makerspace. And I had been doing some research, I had been working in the space. I have some slides, and I forgot about them. So we already talked about that one a little bit. I want to talk about community and growth in makerspaces. So, I came to NYU, And I had, like I said, been doing research on the impact that these spaces can have. So what I really want to say is kind of like how these spaces and community can be intentionally built in these spaces. And this is definitely ongoing work. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert in this field, but it is something that I do every day. And there are some former and current students in this audience, and I'm just so happy to see that. Warms my heart. So the space, the NYU Makerspace, is 3.5 years old. And again, I'm going to tell you that community is not built overnight. But what you hear when you hear about makerspaces is that community is essential. Oh, there's this community in makerspaces. It's a thing. Okay, how did it get there? How do we build it if we open a new one? What does it look like? What do we want it to look like? What can be different? What needs to be the same? How do we amplify maybe the voices that aren't always amplified? How do we welcome in the people that aren't always welcomed in? So I think a few things that I have on this slide and some of the research that we've done as we build community is to be really intentional about it, of course. It takes work every day. It does. You have to care deeply about the people that work in those spaces and work with you. There's a piece around affordability and permissions. So I see Lucy, who's in our audience, and I didn't know she was going to be here, so I wasn't planning on saying this. But one thing I like to say about our makerspace and about when you're building community and, again, inviting in other voices is trying to say yes as much as possible. And I like how that references Yes Man, right? So Lucy, when she was at Tandon, was the head of the SAE Aero team, and they built a plane from scratch. It was really impressive. You should talk to her about it. And one day she came to me and she was like, Victoria, can I hang this plane from the ceiling? And I was like, okay, we'll figure it out. So we did. And it's an amazing conversational piece. And it's still in the makerspace. And it reminds me of Lucy and her team every day. And it's something that I tell guests about. It's something that students can see. We have a lot of pieces in the space. Ariane is sitting in the back, and she's recently made some guitars from scratch, which are really exciting. So I think, the thing about some of these pieces that I show on the screen, specifically this piece on your left, are tangible things that you leave in your spaces, or maybe you afford others to leave in your space, that give you opportunities for reflection, give you examples of the work that can be done, and just inspire others. So that's been a part of our growth of community in our space. Thank you.